You've probably watched Pitch Black and thought, yeah, I know this one. Vin Diesel, glowing eyes, monsters that hate the light. Cool movie. But the real story behind this film is insane. Riddick was originally written as a woman who was supposed to die. The studio financing the movie went bankrupt while they were still shooting in the middle of the Australian outback, and the contact lenses Diesel wore on day one got so stuck in his eyes that a doctor had to be flown in by plane just to remove them. Today we're counting down 15 insane facts about Pitch Black that will completely change how you see this film. And by the time we get to number 1, you'll realize this movie barely existed at all. But before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. It's the best way to support the channel. Let's get into it. Number 15. Before David Twohy ever touched the script, Pitch Black was a completely different film called Nightfall, written by Jim and Ken Wheat. The character we now know as Richard B. Riddick didn't exist. In their version, the dangerous outlaw was a woman named Tara Krieg. The creatures weren't physical predators, they were ghost-like entities. There was no eclipse, just a slow cycle of day and night. Almost everything you associate with the finished film was absent. When Twohy came on board to rewrite the script, he changed the gender of the outlaw, invented the eclipse, designed the creature's relationship with light, added Johns' morphine addiction, and built the geologist's outpost. The film's entire DNA, the character, the world, the threat came from his rewrite. The only things that survived from the original Wheat script were the bare premise: survivors stranded on a hostile planet with a dangerous criminal in their midst. Everything else is Twohy. The character, who became one of the most iconic anti-heroes in science fiction, began as someone else entirely. Number 14. Even after Twohy made Riddick male and gave him glowing eyes and a philosophy, the plan was still to kill him. In Twohy's original version of the script, Riddick dies in the film's climax. Carolyn Fry was written as the sole survivor. Riddick was the danger, not the hero. The story was always hers. Test screenings changed everything. Audiences kept talking about Riddick. A character written as the villain had become the person everyone wanted to follow. Universal pushed Twohy to change the ending and keep him alive, and here is where it gets extraordinary. Twohy left the ghost of the original ending inside the new one. Riddick's final line in the film instructs the others to tell anyone who asks that he died on the planet. The line is a precise description of what would have happened if the test screening had gone differently. The original ending survived as a piece of dialogue in the film that replaced it. Every sequel, every game, every franchise entry after this, all of it exists because test audiences in 1999 refused to let him go. Number 13. Polygram Filmed Entertainment greenlit and began financing Pitch Black. Then, while the crew was still deep in the South Australian outback, Polygram's parent company was sold to Seagram and the studio was absorbed into Universal. The production continued without knowing whether the money would keep flowing or whether anyone would distribute the finished film. Director David Twohy later described the genuine fear that after everything, the desert, the heat, the creatures, the film might simply go straight to video. Universal eventually cherry-picked 2 films from the collapsing Polygram catalog for theatrical release. One was a Hugh Grant romantic comedy, the other was Pitch Black. The survival of the entire Riddick franchise came down to a studio executive picking exactly the right 2 titles off a dead company's shelf. Pitch Black became the final film credit Polygram Filmed Entertainment ever released, and the studio that made it possible never lived to see what it had started. Number 12. When Twohy went to cast Riddick, the studio came back with a name, Steven Seagal. He was a bankable action star. He had an existing audience. The logic was commercially sound and creatively disastrous. Twohy refused immediately and completely. He has said that someone called him with the news, and his response was a flat no, followed by a significant fight with the studio that he refused to lose. His position was direct. If Seagal got cast, he he would no longer be the director. Instead, Toohey pushed for Vin Diesel, an unknown at the time, and made his case to producer Ted Field by pointing to a short film Diesel had made himself for $3,000. Field watched it. He agreed. The studio's preferred choice was already a fading name by the time the film released in 2000, while the unknown they almost didn't cast used Pitch Black to launch one of the most durable action careers of the next 2 decades. The entire Riddick franchise exists because one director refused to make a phone call go the way the studio wanted. Number 11. In the mid-1990s, Vin Diesel was working as a telemarketer in New York, calling people to sell light bulbs. He had moved back home after getting nowhere in Los Angeles. In 1994, using $3,000 of his own money, he wrote, directed, produced, and starred in a short film called Multifacial, about a multi-ethnic actor who couldn't get cast because nobody could place his ethnicity. He submitted it to Cannes. It was selected. Steven Spielberg saw Multifacial and was struck enough by Diesel's screen presence that he created a role specifically for him. In Saving Private Ryan, no audition, just a part written for him. That credit led to The Iron Giant. The Iron Giant raised his profile enough that Toohey could make the case to Universal. The $3,000 short film begat Saving Private Ryan, begat The Iron Giant, begat Pitch Black, begat a franchise spanning 4 films, video games, animated features, and novels. The telemarketer who sold light bulbs for a living built one of science fiction's most durable characters with a camera, $3,000, and the good sense to send it to Cannes.
Hold together until the lights burn out. Until you can't see what's eating you.
Number 10. Riddick's glowing, reflective eyes required prototype contact lenses that had never been tested on a human being before production. Diesel later described them as feeling like hubcaps from a 1960 Plymouth had been pressed into his eye sockets. On the first day of filming, when the shooting day ended and it was time to remove the lenses, they wouldn't come out, they were stuck. The production was shooting in the remote South Australian outback, and the nearest optometrist was 3 hours away by road. The doctor was flown in by plane. Diesel was taken to hospital to confirm no permanent damage had been done. The lenses had scratched his cornea. From that point forward, an optometrist was kept on location for the remainder of the shoot. Despite all of this, Diesel kept wearing the lenses. He insisted on them for later Riddick films even after the production had largely shifted to CGI for the eye effect. His reasoning was that the lenses changed how he moved and expressed himself. They forced him to communicate entirely through body language and stillness rather than conventional eye contact, which became the physical foundation of the entire character. Day 1. Hospital. He went back and did it again anyway. Number 9. The planet in Pitch Black looks like the most hostile, sun-scorched environment imaginable. Every frame of the daytime sequences communicates brutal, suffocating heat. The reality of filming those sequences was almost perfectly opposite. The production shot around Coober Pedy in South Australia from March to July, 1999 the Southern Hemisphere winter. Temperatures on set were around 10 degrees Celsius. It was cold enough between takes that cast members were throwing on jackets the moment the director called cut. To create the illusion of sweating survivors suffering under triple suns, the crew sprayed the actors with water and gel before every take. Every drop of moisture visible on any actor in any daytime scene was manually applied by someone holding a misting bottle. The bleached, overexposed visual style, which makes the planet feel genuinely alien, was not a post-production effect. It was a photochemical technique built into the negative during development, achieved by reversing the standard bleach bypass process to push the image toward highlights rather than shadow. The desert that looks like it would kill you in minutes was filmed by actors wearing jackets between setups on a cold Australian winter morning.
Some communal graveyard, perhaps. Like the elephants of...
Number 8. The script described the film's predators simply as creatures that could fly and hunted in darkness. Creature designer Patrick Tatopoulos, whose credits include Stargate, Independence Day, and Underworld, worked with Toohey from the biology outward rather than the appearance inward. The core concept was echolocation. Instead of eyes giving the creatures visual depth perception, they would have acoustic outriggers, elongated sonic structures on either side of the head that emitted and received ultrasonic pulses to build a sound map of everything in front of them. The creatures have no eyes anywhere on their body. Their anchor-shaped heads are entirely sensing organs. An early design placed a ball-shaped emitter at the center of the head, but it looked too much like a single eye and undermined the concept entirely. It was replaced with armored membranes to make the blindness visible. The design also left the creatures with a specific vulnerability. Their echolocation cannot resolve objects directly in front of them at close range, creating a blind spot that the film never explicitly explains, but uses in every survival scene. Toohey and Tatopoulos built a complete biological system and then trusted the audience to feel it without being told what they were looking at. Number 7. The full-scale exterior of the Hunter Gratzner, the spaceship that crashes at the start of the film, was built in the South Australian outback for the location shoot. When production wrapped and the crew went home, the prop stayed. Nobody dismantled it. A local businessman in Coober Pedy bought it from the production and left it where it stood. It has been sitting in the open desert on Hutchison Street, opposite Winch Street, for over 25 years. You can find it on Google Maps right now. The town repurposed other leftover set pieces from the production into an outdoor art installation called the Petrify Forest. The spaceship itself has become a local landmark that tourists make specific trips to photograph. Meanwhile, the miniature model used for the in-space shots before the crash was built, separately in Los Angeles by a visual effects company called Hunter Gratzner Industries, named after its founders, Ian Hunter and Matthew Gratzner. The ship in the film shares its name with the company that built it. The company that constructed the model of the Hunter Gratzner named themselves after the ship. The full-size version of that ship is still out there, slowly weathering under the actual Australian sun, 25 years after the camera stopped rolling. Number 6. The very first thing you hear in Pitch Black is Riddick's voice narrating his own story over black. It is one of the most effective character introductions in modern science fiction. Immediate, mythological, quietly menacing. It was also not written until after the film had already been shot and edited. Test audiences watched the original cut, which opened cold with Carol and Fry waking from cryosleep and couldn't orient themselves. They didn't know when or where the story was set. The beginning confused rather than intrigued. Toohey wrote the narration in post-production, and Diesel recorded it after principal photography was complete. It was then dropped into the existing edit as a framing device. This created a quietly remarkable situation. The most talkative Riddick is in the entire film is in a piece of writing that was added months after filming ended. After the voiceover, Diesel doesn't speak a single word of dialogue to another character for almost 30 minutes. For the rest of the film, he communicates almost entirely through stillness, posture, and the reflective lenses hiding his eyes. The character, who felt fully formed from the very first frame, was written into the film after the fact by a writer who realized the audience needed a door. That voiceover is the door. Number 5. Johns, the bounty hunter, played by Cole Hauser, uses morphine throughout the film. The method he uses to inject it is one of the most disturbing details in the entire picture. He injects directly into his tear duct rather than his arm. The reason is practical and horrifying. No needle marks anywhere visible on his body means nobody ever suspects. It implies years of disciplined, methodical concealment from everyone around him. A professional who has thought carefully about how to hide what he is. The detail is not fiction. Hauser revealed in the DVD commentary that during his preparation for the role, a real doctor told him the most disturbing injection site he had personally ever encountered in a patient. It was the tear duct. Hauser took it directly into the film. The shotgun shells Johns carries are double loaded with morphine. He always has 2 doses within reach, a detail Carol and Fry discovers and uses to expose him. The revelation works not because Johns is weak or careless, but because he is genuinely capable and has been hiding this for a very long time. One doctor's story about a real patient became the most unsettling character detail in a film full of monsters. Number 4. The scene where Riddick wrenches his shoulder free from his restraints is one of the film's most viscerally effective character moments. Diesel personally demonstrated the shoulder dislocation stunt for the crew using a chain between his hands before cameras rolled, showing exactly how the movement should look. The version in the film combines his actual physical performance with practical augmentation. The bone crack sounds were added in post, but the body movement is Diesel's own. On a separate day, Diesel tore a muscle during a scene where Riddick yanks a tarp off a structure to reveal a hiding place. Someone had tied a rope to the back of the tarp to secure it in the wind and forgotten to remove it before the take. Diesel felt the rope pull back against him and kept going anyway rather than stop the scene. He pulled through the resistance and pulled the muscle. Then, during a sequence shot inside a suspended animation chamber, the confined space triggered a genuine claustrophobia attack, and the crew had to physically remove him from the pod before filming could continue. The performance of a character who appears physically unstoppable cost the actor considerably more than the audience ever sees on screen. Number 3. The visual system of Pitch Black is considerably more rigorous than it first appears. Cinematographer David Egby and Toohey designed the film so that every scene's dominant color corresponds directly to which of the planet's 3 suns is in the sky, and then calibrated the lighting and photochemical, processed differently for each. The red-yellow sun sequences used triple-stacked warming gels on every light. The blue sun scenes used HMI lights with blue gel throughout. Interior stage sequences were color-matched to the corresponding exterior to maintain complete continuity. The result is a film where the viewer's sense of danger and environment is being managed subconsciously through color temperature without a single line of dialogue explaining the system. Warmth signals one kind of threat, cold blue signals another, the total desaturation of the eclipse sequence signals something the planet has been building toward for 22 years. The moment the 3 suns disappear in sequence, the image drains through the color palette into darkness in real time, not a visual effect, but a photochemical technique applied to a lighting rig. Most audiences feel the shift completely without ever identifying what produced it. That is the system working exactly as designed. Number 2. In 2006, Vin Diesel agreed to appear in The Fast and the Furious. Tokyo Drift, a film in the franchise he had deliberately avoided in exchange for full creative and commercial ownership of the Riddick character. He didn't take a fee, he took the rights. The context makes this even stranger. 3 years earlier, he had turned down a reported $20 million to star in Too Fast, Too Furious, choosing instead to take $50,000 to write a WGA draft of the Chronicles of Riddick because he believed the character was worth more than the payday. When Chronicles underperformed in 2004, Universal shelved the franchise. The 2006 cameo trade was Diesel's way of getting it back from a studio that no longer wanted it. The consequences of owning the character outright became clear when no studio would finance the third Riddick film. Diesel and Toohey financed it themselves independently, outside the studio system, and when the money ran short, Diesel mortgaged his own house to complete it. He told The Hollywood Reporter directly, if they didn't finish, he would be homeless. The franchise that began as a $23 million independent film that nearly went straight to video became a character its own lead actor bet his home on. The cameo he traded for ownership cost him nothing. The ownership cost him everything. Number 1. Here is the fact that reframes everything else in this countdown. The ending you watch Riddick alive, escaping, telling the others to lie about his fate is not the ending, David Toohey wrote. His original script had Riddick dying in the creature attack. Carolyn Fry was always the intended sole survivor. The film was her story. Riddick was the danger that shaped it, not the hero who concluded it. Test screenings in 1999 changed the math. Universal pushed for a reshot ending. Riddick lived. But Toohey did something extraordinary with the new ending. He left the original inside it. Riddick's final instruction to Jack and Imam, tell them Riddick's dead, tell them he died somewhere on that planet, is not just a line about evading bounty hunters. It is a word-for-word description of what would have happened in the film that test audiences killed. Every person who watches that scene is hearing the original ending delivered as dialogue by the character who survived it. The ghost of the film that almost was is preserved in the final scene of the film that exists. 4 films, video games, animated features, a franchise Diesel mortgaged his house to continue. All of it traces back to a room full of test audiences in 1999 who couldn't let a character go and a director smart enough to let them be right, while making sure the original ending was never completely gone. And that is 15 insane facts about Pitch Black you never knew. If any of these hit different, drop it in the comments below. Smash that like button, subscribe so you never miss a video like this, and we'll see you in the next one.